Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Coming up, an officer faced with a gunman who's ready to die. He actually tells 911 dispatchers he wants cops to kill him. So how do officers handle that when confronted by the armed suspect? But first, the walking sideshow that is Michael Avenatti just added another ring to this one-man circus. Remember him? The mainstream media has all but forgotten the guy now that he is in big, big trouble. A federal judge ruled today that Avenatti can represent himself in his criminal trial on charges he stole from his former client, porn star Stormy Daniels. I know this may sound completely crazy, but I'm not sure it's such a bad idea. I'll explain it in a moment. But Avenatti stands accused of pocketing $300,000 from an advance Daniels got for her memoir, Full Disclosure, by allegedly pretending to be her and tricking Daniels' agent into sending him the money. Avenatti says he'd lent money to Daniels and that she had agreed to share the book's profits with him. It's a sort of twisted full circle for two people whose professional relationship began 4 years ago when Avenatti represented Daniels in a lawsuit against then-President Donald Trump. Opening statements began yesterday, and Avenatti had a full legal team representing him. But today, during a lunch break, he told the judge there was a breakdown between him and his lawyers on strategy over the questioning of a former office manager who took the stand this morning and told prosecutors that Avenatti's firm was short on cash during the time that Daniels' book advance was being paid out. So having apparently pushed aside his attorneys, Avenatti is now free to cross-examine Daniels himself. She's expected to take the stand for the prosecution as soon as tomorrow. This is Avenatti's third federal criminal prosecution in about as many years. In a case where he was accused of extorting Nike, he was convicted and sentenced to 2.5 years. He had lawyers in that case. Then in another case where he was accused of stealing from clients, he represented himself, and that ended in a mistrial. And now he'll get to ask Stormy Daniels in the first person, did I? Didn't I? Wasn't I awesome? Was I not your personal hero? Lawyers will always say that a lawyer who represents himself is a fool for a client. But I am not so sure it's such a bad idea in this case. Joining me now is Los Angeles-based criminal defense attorney and longtime legal analyst Dana Cole, and Terri Austin, attorney and host for Law and Crime. Good to see you both. All right, Dana Cole, let me start with you. I know your initial reaction is to say this is nuts, that Avenatti is representing himself. But is it really going to change much? I mean, I think it might be valuable for him to be able to cross-examine his ex-client, say, wait a sec, didn't you tell me this, as opposed to a lawyer asking it in the third person?
Absolutely, completely agree. Generally, it's nuts to represent yourself, but he has always been the captain of the ship. He knows his cases better than anybody else. He has presence in a courtroom. He's been through this drill now a few times with some other federal trials, so who better than the guy who's on trial? I mean, he does have the benefit of asking questions where he can insert himself in the question without then having to testify. It's kind of brilliant. And I think, I don't know that it will work because they almost have him dead to rights, but you never know. He's a character, and characters sometimes win in court.
Terri Austin, Stormy Daniels is, based on the interviews that I've seen with her, comes across as a pretty together, smart woman who I would think is also going to have some ability to try and get under Avenatti's skin.
Oh, I think she will get under his skin. And I do think that it is a fool who is representing himself. And I think he's going to have a problem. I think he's going to get upset while he's questioning Stormy Daniels. I think he will definitely get irritated. I think he's going to lose track of the questions he needs to ask her. And it's just too much work, Dan. I mean, have someone else do the work for you and just give them notes and make sure they do as you are told to do when you are a lawyer, and you can direct your own lawyer to handle the case. So I think she's going to get under his skin, and I think it's going to be interesting, to say the least. But there's no way I would ever represent myself in a case like that.
Well, and the judge even warned him, saying, look, you don't have any criminal law experience here. But, you know, Dana Cole, he tried this in the other case where he was being tried for stealing from clients, and at least he got a mistrial out of it.
You know, a capable trial attorney can walk into any courtroom And with that presence, with that confidence, with the ability to know how to cross-examine, can do quite well. So even though he's not really a criminal defense lawyer, it almost doesn't matter. He knows his case better than anybody else.
Dana, let me ask you, do you know how much time he's potentially facing if he's convicted in this case?
Yeah, $300,000 by federal standards isn't that much money. So at most, he might be looking at 18 months to 2 years at most, and it could even be less.
Yeah, and I think, Terri Austin, I think this is the big one for him from a PR perspective, right? This is the one that's going to get the most coverage, even though the media doesn't seem as interested in him anymore. But this is going to be the case where, people may be following the outcome more than extorting Nike.
Well, I do think they're going to follow this outcome. And the one thing I will say is he must be very confident, because if he is in fact questioning Stormy Daniels and everybody wants to see her, he is not going to ask a question he doesn't know the answer to. So if he knows all the answers, then, who knows? Maybe he has a good case and he knows that he's going to get the answers he wants when he asks those questions.
Dana Cole, you've been a legal analyst for a long time. You and I go back many years. Are you surprised that the mainstream media has basically stopped covering Michael Avenatti? Meaning, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's been a reference or two. I probably should have looked it up before I asked this question, but there's been almost no coverage of his cases on cable news, et cetera. Are you surprised by that?
Well, the problem is federal courts are very anti-camera. So all of his cases have been federal trials. So it's difficult to generate a lot of coverage when cameras can't sort of be in and about the court, either the courtroom or the hallways or that type of thing. So it doesn't totally surprise me. These federal courts are very camera shy.
But as you know, Terri Austin, there are going to be some who are going to say, well, he was the media darling before. He was on every channel. He's one of the most famous people in America. And now he's being tried and no one wants to talk about him.
You're absolutely right. And in fact, that is what Fox News said. They basically said that now he's no longer the darling of the media. No one is covering him. And I think probably there are some outlets who are a bit embarrassed about what they have said. And now that Avenatti is definitely being, dragged through court, no one really wants to cover that.
I'm going to disclose something here for the first time. When I was ABC's legal analyst, and Michael Avenatti threatened ABC that if they kept me, that he was never going to talk to them again. Now, that is now a major badge of honor for me. So, at the time, it was a real, pain in the butt. Now it's like I look back on it and I say, hey, I'm the guy that Avenatti threatened that if they keep him, he's not going to work with them anymore. Anyway, Terri Austin and Dana Cole, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
Coming up, radical Democrats taking a page out of the radical Republican playbook by censuring Senator Kyrsten Sinema. These political temper tantrums on both sides are really bad for everyone near the middle. Meanwhile, this just in, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens have just been denied places in the 2022 Baseball Hall of Fame class. Are steroid allegations the reason for the snub? We have the only man who is a nationally known expert on both partisan politics and partisan baseball, who has written extensively about both. George Will joins us next, coming up. Radical Democrats now taking a page out of the radical Republican playbook. Over the weekend, Arizona Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema was censured by the state's Democratic Party over her refusal to alter Senate filibuster rules to pass voting rights bills that have stalled in Congress. The vote apparently was unanimous. State Party Chair Raquel Tehran tried to claim that Sinema forced the party's hand by citing the senator's, quote, failure to do whatever it takes to ensure the health of our democracy. Now, these state party votes have almost no bearing on federal politics. The censure is basically symbolic, effectively a political spanking that used to be reserved for truly horrible conduct, and which has now become an all too common way to allow the extremes of the parties to publicly flog anyone who takes a position that the party bosses don't like. Basically, abandoning the middle, getting us further away from the middle. Whether you agree with Sinema or disagree isn't the point. The point is that a censure should be for truly horrific conduct, not just because someone voted in a way that you don't like. In the wake of the second Trump impeachment, 6 senators and members of Congress were censured by their state parties after they voted to impeach then President Trump for his role in the January 6th Capitol riot. Another 4 Republican lawmakers were otherwise rebuked by their state parties. In Arizona, Cindy McCain, former Senator Jeff Flake, and current Republican Governor Doug Ducey were all censured by the state GOP last year. Apparently, the party rebuked McCain and Flake over opposition to Trump and for the governor over his emergency orders. In Georgia, the state Republican Party censured Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger for ignoring President Trump's pressure to overturn the state's 2020 election results. And countless other local officials across the country have also been driven from the ranks from their state parties for refusal to kowtow to the radicals. Sinema's censure wasn't over her opposition to the voting rights bill, something she says she supports, but over her refusal to blow up the 60-vote filibuster threshold in order to pass the bill with 51 votes. Now, regardless of what, let's say an MSNBC or liberal outlets may tell you, this is not just a Republican issue. After months of accosting Sinema in bathrooms and airports, Arizona's activist left is now trying to remove her from the party ranks altogether. The ideological purity tests on both the left and the right are at odds with the rest of us, the majority of us, who are somewhere in the middle. Before we talk the Baseball Hall of Fame announcement that just occurred in the last 2 hours, let's talk to NewsNation's senior contributor and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist George Will. George, thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate it. What do you make of these censures?
Well, as you say, they're a declining currency value because there's so many of them. First of all, the state parties committees do not even represent the state parties. The Republicans' committees are to the right of their party and the Democrats to the left of theirs. But at stake here is a principle of great importance to democratic theory. On the one hand, there are those who say a senator is supposed to be a mere transmission belt, doing the bidding and taking the instructions of the majority in their districts. There's another, I think, more true to our founders' understanding, that a senator is supposed to, of course, pay attention to his constituents, but also a senator should exercise judgment, should deliberate, should have special knowledge, and should be independent. The Senate was designed to produce independent people. 6-year terms as opposed to just 2 terms of the House. The Senate is not elected all at once, but in series of elections so that you don't have the entire Senate turn over at once. This insulates the Senate from the gusts of public opinion. So what we've seen with Sinema and with Toomey, who's been censured, and Sass and others, is a senator acting in a senatorial way. I, for one, find it exhilarating to see a public official who is not held on a tight leash by the most clamorous faction of the public.
But it does make me think about the primaries, right? It's always the threat on both sides is the person's going to get primaried, right? They're going to get primaried. And as a result, the party gets pulled further to the one extreme or the other. But of course, the reality is, because the majority of Americans are somewhere in the middle, the more one party pulls someone to the extreme, the more likely that person won't win in a general election.
Bernie Sanders is talking about supporting a primary against Manchin in West Virginia. Donald Trump won West Virginia by what, 40 points? Now, if Senator Sanders comes in and gets a progressive nominated in place of Manchin, do they think they're going to hold that seat? It's bizarre.
Yeah. All right, let me ask you about, I got to ask you about baseball, all right? You've written numerous books on baseball. You're one of the nation's great experts on the sport. The Baseball Hall of Fame announced in the last couple of hours that former Red Sox slugger David Ortiz is going to be the only member of its 2022 class. They rejected Bonds and Roger Clemens. You think this is because of steroids?
It is because of steroids, and the Hall of Fame has to make a decision. It has to decide whether it's a museum, that is a record of what happened, or whether it's a shrine. Now, the Hall of Fame voters are told to consider not just the numbers, the achievements on the field, but character, sportsmanship, respect for the game. So they have 2 conflicting missions here. Barry Bonds and Clemens, two of the greatest players of all time by the numbers. But by the other standard of sportsmanship and concern for the integrity of the game, they fail. So, as I say, the real decision now is not about Bonds and Clemens, about Cooperstown. What is it? A museum or a shrine?
Yeah, and they also have to decide how many visitors they want, because if they care about that, then they got to start letting the best players in to have them represented there. George Will, perfect guess. Who else could we get in the country who could talk about both these things as a national expert? We appreciate you coming on.
Glad to be with you.
Straight ahead, it's the hot mic moment that had the conservative media clutching their pearls and the liberals hypocritically jumping to the president's defense. But after initially going to their corners over the president calling a Fox News reporter an SOB, something magical happened. Everyone came out a winner. That's next. Time now for our Mediaite Moments, where we check in on the day's bias, buzz, and bull in the world of cable news and beyond. The political media world was abuzz yesterday when a hot microphone picked up President Joe Biden reacting to a question shouted by Fox News reporter Peter Doocy in a less than kind manner.
What do you think President Biden placed in that? Do you think he placed it as a political liability?
That's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a...
That video spread like wildfire because, well, it used to be outside the norm for a sitting president to insult a member of the press, whether intentional or otherwise, and because cable news loves nothing more than conflict. The pundits predictably pounced, particularly on Fox News, where they relished in one of their own becoming the story and the victim.
As the Biden White House implodes, poor Joe Biden, he's lashing out today. He called our own Peter Doocy a, quote, stupid son of a...
The president using profanity, insulting our own Peter Doocy.
President Joe Biden, who once promised dignity from the White House, calling a Fox News reporter, Peter Doocy, a stupid son of a you-know-what on the...
What a nasty old man.
And, of course, the more progressive outlets took a different angle.
Lots of liberals were cheering for Biden when he called Doocy an SOB.
How much was that? The president letting off steam, irritated with a Fox reporter not realizing the mic is on.
There's a benefit for presidents to use certain reporters as foils.
I think a lot of Democrats would like to see the White House do something very different and treat Fox more aggressively.
Of course, for Peter Doocy, this was a huge win. And he appeared on Fox News and handled the insult with humor and humility.
I think the president's right. You are a stupid SOB.
Yeah, nobody has fact-checked him yet and said it's not true.
No one's given Pinocchios for that one.
Later, Doocy revealed that the president called him to clear the air, which won over some Biden critics, including Peter Doocy's father, Steve Doocy, and Fox and Friends co-host Brian Kilmeade.
And they still, at the end of the day, still respected each other. And I think the fact that the president called after, I think is a great sign.
Peter does not, he said last night, he does not need an apology. He's a big boy. And he is big. He's 6'6".
He's 6'6". Learn something new every day. Look, everyone won in this story. The left gets to cheer Biden for giving him hell. Fox News gets hours of programming with poor Peter as the victim. And he gets elevated and gets to show his grace at the same time. Who knew that calling someone an SOB could become such a harmonious moment? Only in the wacky world of politics and cable news. That's our wrap-up of the day's bias, buzz, and bull. Coming up, the dark underbelly of the UFC exposed. Everyday fighters knock the living daylights out of each other in the octagon, but they're also taking a beating in their wallets, making pennies compared to boxers with virtually no rights to negotiate. It is actually shameful. That's next. The UFC has become one of America's most popular sports entities. The blockbuster mixed martial arts promotion is raking in big bucks at the box office and on pay-per-view. But now, one star fighter is coming forward to ask a very reasonable question. Where the fighter's money? Where is it? Show me the money. Heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou was the headliner for UFC 270 this past Saturday in Anaheim, California. He defeated Cyril Gane in the main event to retain his title belt. The fight was broadcast on pay-per-view for a price tag of $75. Industry experts estimate that as many as 500,000 fans bought the fight, generating a windfall of $37.5 million from TV alone. That's not counting gate receipts at the sold-out arena, sponsorship money, other revenue. And Ngannou's take, $600,000. As you might expect, the champ is not thrilled with his financial arrangement. He's talked openly about wanting to compete in professional boxing. And why wouldn't he? Boxing's heavyweight champ, Tyson Fury, made $30 million for his last fight. $30 million would be nice, but Ngannou would be content with a contract that compensates him even somewhat equitably for putting his body on the line. Ngannou's flirtation with boxing has drawn the ire of the UFC's top executives, most notably outspoken UFC president Dana White, who bucked tradition by not personally awarding the championship belt to Ngannou after the fight. Ngannou claims that just hours before he entered the octagon on Saturday, the UFC threatened to sue him for breach of contract for pursuing a move to boxing. Now, he was set to be a free agent after his fight on Saturday, but like all UFC fighters, his deal includes a clause which gives the UFC the right to extend his contract by an additional year because he's the current champion. So Ngannou must either continue on under the terms of the current deal or give up a full year of earning power in the prime of his career. Now, he's become the face of the UFC's pay dispute. But to be clear, it impacts everyone in the sport. Ngannou, at least, makes a real wage. That's not so true for many of the other fighters on the UFC payroll. At this past Saturday night's event, only the top 5 fighters out of 22 on the card made more than $100,000, and 9 made less than $25K. Now, that might sound like good money. But when you consider that a fighter can only compete once every few months, and these are the top fighters in the sport, it becomes far less impressive. Take out trainers' fees and taxes and expenses, and boxing sure does look rosy. The UFC also doesn't give its fighters health insurance. Now, to be clear, fighters are covered for injuries suffered during a bout or in training camp, but if any long-term problems develop, they're on their own. All this in a sport that has become a gold mine. The UFC was sold to William Morris Endeavor for $4 billion back in 2016. Industry experts now put its valuation as high as $10 billion. Meanwhile, all the fighters on Saturday night combined made $1.8 million. The legal issue at play here is a federal law called the Muhammad Ali Act. The Ali Act is intended to put up a firewall between the promoters, like the UFC, and managers. It states, quote, "It is unlawful for a promoter to have a direct or indirect financial interest in the management of a boxer." Here's the problem. Only boxing is subject to the Ali Act. Mixed martial arts is exempt. And so the UFC can essentially act as both a manager and promoter and use its leverage to keep purses way below market value. That leads to all sorts of problems for fighters, like top middleweight contender Jared Cannonier. Here's what he said after a fight last August about when he planned to return.
Do you anticipate fighting again or kind of waiting to see what happens in that title fight?
I'm broke, so I need to fight.
Think about that. ESPN pays upwards of $300 million a year for the TV rights to the UFC. And Jared Cannonier is a top fighter, currently the number 3 ranked middleweight contender. He just won the main event on an ESPN card televised in prime time. He's talking about how he has to rush back into his next fight because he's broke. What does it say about a sport that likes to claim it's doing right by its fighters? Joining us now is Andreas Hale, senior editor of Combat Sports for the Sporting News. He's covered the UFC for a long time as it's grown into a multi-million-dollar behemoth. Andreas, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. So you've done a lot of reporting about the pay inequity in the UFC. I just became aware of this recently. Is it as outrageous as it seems?
It is all that and then some. I mean, again, when you highlight Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder making $50 million to fight each other, that's pretty much the top tier. But let's take an example. Sean Porter, who fought Terrence Crawford, and they drew about 135,000 pay-per-view buys, and they split a $10 million purse. This UFC card is going to eclipse that in pay-per-view buys, and Ngannou and Gane are not going to make 1.5 million together. That's absurd.
So you're talking about boxing. You're making the comparison just for people who, aren't following all of these names. You're making the comparison to boxing, and now bring it back to the UFC. I mean, give us a sense. So you're you're in the top 50 UFC fighters. Let's say you're, and I know they don't necessarily rank it this way, but you're in the 25 to 50 somewhere in the country as a UFC fighter. How much do you think you make a year?
I mean, if you're lucky, if you could fight 3 times a year, and if you're the lower half of that top 50, maybe you make $300,000, maybe, if you're lucky.
Right.
Once you get locked into your contract, nothing changes if you move up in the ranks. You're still stuck in that same contract. You can't renegotiate in the middle of your contract. Whereas in boxing, you kind of negotiate on a fight-by-fight basis. Here, you could be the main event, and you could still make $25,000 to show up for the main event of a UFC card. That is absolutely absurd.
Has there been any movement on the kind of the legislative front to say this needs to change?
It's still ongoing. They've been discussing this for several years now to apply the Ali Act to MMA. It hasn't happened yet. The UFC has been bucking it, but it's still going on. There's a lot of conversations still happening. There's still talks about fighters unionizing, but this is a very difficult proposition, and hopefully this gets resolved sooner than later, because the fighters in the UFC just clearly are not making enough money. And when you have fighters that say, I got to fight again or else I'm going to be broke, or you have a fighter like Ngannou who wants to go box because the grass is clearly greener on the other side, you have a problem, and there could be a full-out mutiny one day. But as it stands right now, legislation is still moving relatively slow.
And so what do you expect is going to happen with this sort of threat to sue Ngannou over this?
It's interesting because Ngannou's currently injured, and it's very possible he doesn't fight again if he's healthy until the end of the year, which would be close to when his contract would expire. So it seems like there's going to be a standoff here because Ngannou seems like he wants to take this all the way. And is the UFC willing to risk losing their heavyweight champion over some money? Probably. They've sat the best fighter in the world, John Jones, for several years because he wanted more money. John Jones is the best fighter the UFC has. Granted, he has legal trouble, but he wanted more money to fight Francis Ngannou. So will they make him sit? Probably. The UFC's biggest star is Dana White. And then the 3 letters, the UFC, the fighters come after that, excluding Conor McGregor, of course.
Yeah, but I can tell you it's not good news for the UFC when people like Dan Abrams start covering it, who are outside of this world as a sort of legal and practical fairness matter. That's not what the UFC wants. That I'm well aware of. Andreas Hale, very interesting stuff. Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, explosive testimony from the defendant himself in the deadly road rage trial the national media is ignoring. I've said it before, if the defendant were white accused of attacking a black man instead of the other way around, this story would be all over cable news. Double standard on full display as the accused killer tries to convince the jury of his self-defense claim. That's next. It's a high-stakes gamble that few criminal defendants take, taking the stand. I even host a show on A&E called Taking the Stand about those who risk it all and do it. Today we got to see this in a case that should be making national headlines, but no one's talking about it. I believe it's because of race. It began as a road rage incident in Milwaukee on September 22nd, 2020, when a black bicyclist shot and killed a white man who was riding in a car with his wife. The bicyclist claims self-defense, even though he admits punching the man in the face moments earlier. Now, many legal experts have compared this case to the case of Kyle Rittenhouse. But unlike Rittenhouse, this case has received practically zero coverage from the national media. And you tell me, if the defendant was white and the victim was black, would this story be everywhere? The bicyclist, Theodore Edgecombe, is now on trial for the fatal shooting of 54-year-old immigration attorney Jason Clearman. Security footage from the moment of the shooting is critical, and today would be the moment broadcast networks might break in with special coverage if they were covering it, because the defendant today took the stand.
I heard someone yelling out at this point, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you."
What was your intent at this time?
I didn't have any intent. This gentleman actually took one large step and lunged toward me like he was gonna tackle me. And I took a step back. And as I stepped back, it was the reaction from that, the firearm just went off. And with him lunging towards me, I didn't know if he was going after the firearm, if he was coming after me or what, but I know from his words and his actions, his boisterous tone, he told me, "I'm gonna kill you now." So with that, I didn't have no reason to doubt this man.
Now, there were 3 run-ins between the defendant and Clearman. In the first one, Clearman's wife, who was driving, swerved to avoid Edgecombe, who was on his bicycle. In the second, the defendant, Edgecombe, gets next to the Clearman's car and punches Jason Clearman so hard in the face that it knocked his glasses off. And you saw that there on the video. Then the third is the moment of the fatal shooting. The Clearmans pull over right next to Edgecombe. Jason Clearman got out of the car and approaches the defendant. He is then shot dead. Edgecombe claims Clearman had yelled a racial slur and threatened to kill him while lunging towards him with a knife in his hand. Clearman's wife, who is not white, has testified that no racial slurs were uttered. Following the shooting, 31-year-old defendant fled the scene and even the state. He would eventually be tracked down and arrested by authorities 6 months later in Kentucky. Edgecombe is charged with first-degree intentional homicide. If convicted, he faces the possibility of life behind bars. Following direct questioning, the prosecution had a chance to cross-examine the defendant. There were multiple tense exchanges, including this.
Do you think you have the right to chase after someone that has wronged you, but someone does not have the right to do that to you when you punch them?
I was getting chased down with the vehicle.
Wasn't my question, sir. Do you believe it is okay for you to chase after someone and punch them, but someone can't do the same thing to you?
I reacted to being hit.
Your reaction to what you say occurred on this car was to chase after him, not let him get away, and punch him in the face, correct?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Joining me now, attorney Jesse Weber, who's been covering this case as an anchor for the Law and Crime Network. Jesse, good to have you back. All right, so I'm a little confused here. Is his defense that this was an accident and that the gun accidentally went off? Or is his defense that this was self-defense?
Yeah, Dan, you're starting with the most memorable moment of his testimony because it's always been self-defense, always self-defense. The only problem with self-defense is that means that you have to intend to pull that trigger, intend to kill that person, but you did it to protect yourself. He gets on the stand and he says that Clearman lunged at him and the gun kind of accidentally went off. He can't really explain it. The prosecutors took note of that today and they said to the judge, "We don't think you should provide an instruction on self-defense anymore. That is not self-defense." The judge himself said, "I'm a little surprised he said that on the stand." Now, it seems what the judge is ultimately going to do is allow the self-defense instruction, but I'll tell you one thing that's very clear. The jury's going to be confused because how do you have your attorney say this was self-defense, and then the defendant comes on the stand and says this was just merely an accident, he didn't intend to kill or harm anyone? There's a little bit of confusion there. That's why the defense is really going to need to tighten this up in a closing argument to explain it to the jury.
Let me play another piece of sound of the cross-examination today. This is number 4, and this addresses this issue.
When you stepped back, did you pull the gun up?
At that moment, it did go up because I stepped back. It was reactionary.
Just a reaction. So you're stating you didn't mean to shoot him?
There was no intent there, no. I was...
Total accident, he got shot.
Yes, there was no intent there.
Thank you.
Sounds like the Alec Baldwin case.
Well, I think he's really focusing on the word intent because he's charged with first-degree intentional homicide. This is a case, Dan, where I wouldn't be surprised if he's ultimately convicted of something less, like reckless homicide or a second-degree intentional homicide charge. There's no manslaughter in Wisconsin. That's maybe what his lawyers told him to do. Take every opportunity to say you didn't intend to do this. Take every opportunity to say you were protecting yourself, because under cross-examination by the prosecution, there was a moment when he wouldn't answer their questions. He just kept saying, I had to do it to protect myself. I had to do it to protect myself. And look, in every case, it's always a risk, like you said, for a defendant to take the stand. Self-defense cases, it's absolutely vital. He had to do it here. I just think he left the jury maybe with more questions than answers, and that's problematic.
Let me play one more piece of sound. This is number 6. This is from the direct examination where he's describing the punch. He admits that he punched the victim in the face. Let's listen.
When I came up to the passenger window, I actually was, riding kind of fast, and as I gathered myself, riding pretty fast, headed to them. Came up to the passenger window and just asked him, hey, were you guys talking to me? And he said, yes, out. And I punched him.
So that's the, look, that's the defense. That's pretty problematic, right? That he's admitting that he punched the guy in the face.
He had no choice to. It was caught on camera. We all saw it. And if the jury believes him that Clearman used a racial slur, they're probably saying, well, I don't blame him for doing that. Now, the problem is in self-defense, you can't claim self-defense if you're the initial aggressor. He's the one who started the violence. Now, the only benefit for his case is there is a gap of time between the punch and the shooting. He did drive his bicycle away. It was the Clearmans who actually drove near him and started the second part of this. But the fact that he threw that first punch is going to be kind of tough for the defense to move past.
Yeah, and as we've said, his wife, Clearman's wife, who was in the car, who was a woman of color, said that there were no racial epithets that were uttered. So we shall see. We'll continue to follow this case, even though, I think it's a fascinating case. It's a really interesting trial. Yeah. It brings up all sorts of interesting issues. No one is covering it. And as I've said, I think if things were different with regard to the races of the defendant and the victim, all the national media would be all over this. Jesse Weber, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Dan, thank you.
Coming up, an officer finds himself face-to-face with an armed man with only one goal: to die at the hands of the cops. We're on scene. Up next. We are on scene tonight with surveillance and body cam video from the University of Chicago Police Department showing the dangers that officers face every day. An armed man, Rasheen Wilson, was seen last week walking down a sidewalk near campus with a gun, not far from a busy shopping center. He called 911, saying he wanted a police officer to shoot and kill him. While he was on the phone, Wilson started shooting a gun into the air. He was seen waving the gun around as cars drove in and out of a parking lot. An officer was on patrol and tried to talk to him.
Get on the ground! Okay, I got anybody out inside?
The suspect fired shots as soon as the officer got out of his car. The officer took cover on the porch of an apartment building and then ducked behind a parked SUV.
Get on the ground! Send help, Black 3, What in Kimberk? Where are you? 53rd and Woodlawn. 53rd and Woodlawn. Stay on the ground!
The officer shot back at Wilson, hitting him. Wilson was taken to the hospital where he remains tonight. Wilson is charged with attempted murder of an officer. The University of Chicago Police Department and the university are investigating. Join me now, once again, Sean Stix Larkin, retired Tulsa police lieutenant. Stix, how do officers deal with a situation where a suspect wants police to shoot at him?
Obviously a mental health call is one of the toughest things for us to deal with in law enforcement. But the first thing we have to deal with is the threat of violence. Is this person a threat to the officer himself? Is this person a threat to the public? That's the first thing we're going to focus on and try to stop. Sometimes it can be done strictly through conversation with the person. But when you've got somebody out in an open air like this, the neighborhood, running around with a gun, waving it, firing shots, the officer is forced to use deadly force immediately towards a suspect.
And this is a reminder, I think. Some people would say, well, we need, more mental health experts on scenes, and that's certainly a good thing. But you can't just have a mental health expert responding to someone who's firing a weapon on a busy street.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and how much time does it take for a mental health expert to respond to a call like this? Just like us in law enforcement, there's only going to be so many counselors or advocates that are available to respond. But just talking about mental health, some statistics show that somebody suffering from mental illness is 16 times more likely to be involved in a deadly force encounter with police. So it is something that definitely, needs a lot of funding. It needs the help, but police officers are always going to be the first to respond to these type of calls.
After the officer was fired at, he still called for the suspect to put down his weapon. Let's listen to that again.
Get on the ground! Get on the ground! Get on the ground!
Now, I should clarify something, because this officer just happened to be near the scene. Do we know if this officer was even aware that the suspect wanted to get shot?
No, from my understanding, he was actually just driving through the area and actually saw the gentleman running with a gun down the street. I don't know if we call it right place, right time, right place, wrong time, but it was just kind of coincidence he was in the area. And, and just talking about him getting shot at there in Chicago, last year in 2021, there were 76 police officers either shot or shot at in Chicago.
Sean Larkin, as always, thank you. Good to see you.
You too, Dan.
That does it for us tonight. NewsNation Prime with Marnie Hughes starts in 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.